Welcome to Star Watch Now, your front row seat to all the hottest gossip, drama, and breaking news from the world of entertainment. If it's trending, shocking, or star-studded, we're covering it. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss what's coming next. At an age when most people are still deciding who they want to be, Wang Yibo chose the hardest road and kept walking. Not louder, not flashier, just better. Today, we explore why veteran filmmakers describe his path as young in years, mature in craft, and why that matters far beyond celebrity hype. He did not step from spotlight to studio light by accident. He chose it, and in that choice he accepted a different kind of scrutiny. On stage, the rules are simple. Deliver impact in seconds, hold a crowd, let the lights do some of the lifting. In the studio, the lights are colder and more honest. They ask what you mean by a look, whether the silence before a line is earned, and how much truth you are willing to put on the table when no applause will soften the edges. Wang Yibo's pivot from idle platforms to serious sets was not a retreat from noise, but an approach towards rigor. He swapped victories counted in decibels for progress measured in marginal gains. A cleaner breath before a close-up, a steadier hand when a prop must feel lived in, the patient unlearning of habits that read as performance rather than life. It demanded a new metabolism, one that feeds on drafts, rewrites, and retakes, and on the humility to accept that charm cannot stand in for character. The stakes were not merely reputational. To move in this direction is to risk disappointing both camps. Fans who prefer the instant gratification of spectacle, and skeptics who are waiting to declare the experiment hollow. That pressure can cheapen an actor's choices, encouraging louder gestures and quick wins. Yibo went the other way. He embraced a quieter discipline, the kind that rarely trends but always accumulates. Table reads became laboratories for listening. Technical notes from camera and sound became the scaffolding for emotion, not its enemy. He began to look at scenes as arguments that must hold under cross-examination. If the character stands here, breathes there, glances left not right, does the truth travel? This maturation does not erase where he started. It reframes it. The musicality that once marked choreography now guides pacing within a shot. The athletic awareness that powered a dance break now supports stillness, giving the lens space to find microshifts in thought. The persona becomes an instrument rather than a shield. In that transition from brightness to clarity, he earns something more durable than noise. The trust of collaborators who can set harder problems before him, and the patience of audiences willing to lean in. The studio light is unforgiving, but it is also fair. If you arrive prepared and honest, it will show that, too. In an industry fluent in exaggeration, the only language that endures is proof. Hype can purchase a weekend. Craft buys a career. What persuades is not the poster or the press line, but the small, repeatable acts that survive close inspection. You see it in the way a hand hesitates before a door, the breath that steadies a confession, the refusal to rush a reaction because the character would not. These are not gestures designed to trend. They are decisions made to hold. Promotion can declare an actor transformed. Only the work can demonstrate it. That is why he treats each scene as a test that must be passed without the crutch of volume. Dialect practice is not a party trick. It is a way of narrowing the gap between intention and sound. Physical conditioning is not vanity. It is the grammar of movement through which a story is quietly spoken. He aims for the precision that makes the camera irrelevant as a witness, because the behavior itself is credible. When audiences believe, they do so not because they have been told to, but because the seams are hard to find. You cannot advertise your way to that texture. You have to earn it, hour by hour, take by take, note by humbling note. The dailies reward patience. The edit rewards consistency. Directors learn they can place weight on him without hearing the frame creak. Co-actors sense they can risk stillness because he will meet them with listening rather than noise. Proof, in this sense, is cumulative. One true beat invites another. A string of true beats becomes a role that outlives the campaign. There is a quiet bravery in trusting results over rhetoric, in letting evidence accumulate while the louder path beckons. But when the lights cool and the headlines fade, what remains is the thing that cannot be faked. Choices that make truth portable from the set to the audience, and back again. The training that changes an actor is often the kind you cannot post. It lives in quiet rooms and unglamorous habits, in repetitions that look like nothing until suddenly they look like truth. He builds his craft in these hidden hours. He keeps a small notebook of textures and temperatures from each location, not for poetry but for recall. The stiffness of a winter sleeve helps him remember how a man moves when he is guarding himself. He practices breath as if it were choreography, matching inhalations to camera travel so the body never shouts when the scene asks for calm. He rehearses dialogue with the words removed, forcing the eyes to carry meaning before the mouth is allowed to help. Music becomes a tool rather than a mood. A handful of instrumental tracks, each tied to a specific moral temperature, to be played before the slate claps so the inner weather arrives on time. There is cross-training too. Dance teaches balance that reads as composure in close-up. Skating ingrains risk and recovery. Motorsport disciplines reaction under pressure. He shadows departments between takes, props, sound, gaffers, to learn the pressures they shoulder, then adjusts his marks and rhythm so their work can breathe. He keeps a failure log, not to punish himself but to map patterns he can correct. A habit of blinking on hard lines, a tilt of the chin that looks confident but steals vulnerability. Sleep, voice care, and simple food become part of the script. Fatigue cannot be heroic if the story does not ask for it. None of this trends. None of it needs to. The point is to make the camera irrelevant as proof, because the behavior is already coherent. When the director calls action, the invisible work gives the visible moment its weight. The audience may not know why they believe him, only that they do. To play a character is to borrow a life, and borrowing creates an obligation. He treats that obligation seriously. Emotion is not a spectacle to be harvested but a resource to be stewarded. Ethics determine how far and how fast he draws on it. When the script invites pain, he asks whether the scene dignifies the experience of those who have known it in the real world, and whether the cost paid on screen is matched by meaning. He declines shortcuts that sensationalize harm or romanticize recklessness, because a performance that wins attention at the expense of truth is, in the end, a betrayal. The work begins long before the camera turns over. Careful reading of context, listening to consultants, speaking with professionals whose uniforms and burdens the role must honor. He looks for consequence in the margins, the fine print of law, policy, and community practice, so that choices carry weight and actions leave believable echoes. On set, he treats feeling as a craft, not a tantrum. Consent and clarity anchor intense scenes. Partners agree where the edges are, and those edges are respected. He understands that an actor can be courageous without being careless, and that bravery in art is often the patience to stop when the truth has been found rather than to push for a reaction. He avoids gestures that flatten people into types. Instead, he layers contradictions until the character earns complexity. The result is a quieter kind of power. Viewers are moved because they recognize themselves or someone they love, not because they were cornered by shock. Directors recognize the discipline, a performance that stays within ethical lines yet never feels anesthetized. In this frame, responsibility is not a brake on emotion. It is the frame that makes emotion legible. It turns craft into care, and care into trust, the kind that lingers after the lights drop and the credits end. Beyond the frame, his work continues in places that look nothing like a set, because longevity depends on the habits that keep a person honest when no one is watching. He keeps movement diaries that translate skate lines and dance phrasing into blocking ideas, so kinetic memory feeds stillness and balance on screen. He schedules short reading sprints around each role, one biography for moral contour, one essay for argument, one photo book for texture, then distills them into a few anchoring images he can hold between takes. He shadows crew not for optics but to learn their constraints, adjusting marks to save a focus pull or protecting a prop reset so the day makes time. He runs quiet workshops with young actors on breath, consent, and scene ownership, sharing the unglamorous techniques that prevent burnout. With fans, he resists the churn of novelty and offers craft notes instead. Brief reflections that teach people what to look for. A change of weight, an altered blink rate, the half beat before a line. So the conversation grows wiser than gossip. He supports green set practices and accessibility checks because stories travel further when everyone can enter the room. On difficult projects, he invites subject matter voices, officers, medics, linguists to small roundtables, then credits their influence openly, placing humility where marketing often sits. He funds microgrants for student shorts on themes of discipline and care, attending rough-cut nights to ask questions, not give answers. When promotion demands spectacle, he offers evidence. Rehearsal clips that reveal process without spoilers, and community screenings where the focus is the craft of the crew as much as the face on the poster. All of it amounts to one choice repeated in many forms: to build an ecosystem where attention is earned by precision and shared by everyone who makes the work possible. Directors don't prize loudness. They prize reliability under pressure. Yibo's reliability shows up in the unglamorous parts. Arriving prepared, protecting continuity, taking notes without defensiveness, and offering one clean alt when a scene is stuck. Viewers feel the downstream effect. Tighter storytelling, clearer beats, and characters who linger after the credits. That's the mature path Ann Hui recognizes, the kind that turns a rising name into a lasting one. Maturity here isn't a finish line. It's a repeatable habit. Listen, learn, refine, deliver. If the youngest years are already this deliberate, imagine the decade to come. Not louder, not flashier, just better. If this perspective resonated, tap subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss our next deep dive. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Stay curious, stay kind, and keep watching this channel for thoughtful stories that celebrate craft over noise.